He was clearly a meat shield, but he had set the tempo of the entire arena. He was supposed to be a tank, but he became the team controller and became the MVP. What was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. A Spade fan said seriously, "I think I can go to the Japanese server's battle video and claim Big Spade. What do you guys think?" Chapter 667. As usual, there would be a mini-interview after the competition. What's more, there was still one more match before they entered the semi-finals. This match was of utmost importance. It wasn't just the fans, even the media was concerned about Bojo's character. "Is it time to use support next time?" the interviewer asked with a smile. After all, he had already used the other methods. In front of the camera, the young man reached out and pulled the white cat back. He said lazily, "No need. No need." The host was stunned. Why? Because the Almighty didn't teach me how to play the support role before he left. Hearing this, it was not just the host. Even the fox-like smile on Manager Fang's face froze. It wasn't easy for the beautiful MC to find her voice. "You mean to say that the characters you play were all taught to you by Almighty Chin recently?" Bojo glanced up nonchalantly. I've found my own style as a tank, but I haven't gotten used to the sorcerer and archer. I'll practice more when I'm free." The beautiful host, there was no way to continue the conversation. "You're the MVP of every game, yet you still say you're not playing well." However, the others did not understand that the young man really did not play. Bojo was best at being an assassin. He watched the video of the interview. The official Weibo exploded again. "As a fan of the Mo and Jo couple, there's only one sentence left in my eyes. Because the Almighty didn't teach me how to play support before he left. Big Spade, don't cry, the Almighty will teach you when he comes back. Be good, pat my head." To be able to become an all-rounder in such a short period of time, I just want to say that he's super cool. Han Susu and Wu Zhen were also holding their phones. Han Susu couldn't help but reply, "Hee, keep bragging. You can become an all-rounder after 10 days of practice." "Spade Z, you're such a hypocrite." The Spade fans didn't respond to his words. Fan Chin said, "Spade Z started off as an assassin, and being an assassin requires a high level of control and positioning. Plus, with Spade Z's hand speed, as long as he understands the other character's attributes and the usage of some big moves, along with Almighty Chin's all-round guidance, it won't be impossible for him to reach his current level. I'll say this first, I'm a fan of Almighty Chin, and I won't pretend to be a passerby. Putting aside other questions, I'll just say one thing, Spade Z's recent matches have a slight change, and that's the geometric attack curve. What I, Almighty Chin, am best at. Flunkies can't understand how a genius can see the geometric attack curve when he's playing a game. Am I the only one who noticed this? This seems to be the first time I, Almighty Chin, personally taught someone, right? Don't say any more. Dog food, full of dog food. Paw. Han Susu slammed her phone. These CP fans are really crazy, what dog food? After saying this, she seemed to have noticed Wu Zhen's ugly expression. She turned around and held Wu Zhen's hand. Sister Wu, those people don't know of your existence. You and Brother Chin are a couple, what's the big deal about that gay? Wu Zhen smiled and put down the coffee cup in her hand. Why didn't you take revenge on him in the recent matches? Chapter 668. That depends on the higher-ups. Wu Zhen glanced at the contents of the official Weibo, her eyes sinking into the darkness, looking gloomy. We're doing things according to the law, right? Han Susu smiled. Of course, Sister Wu is the fairest. But no matter what, someone like that should be taught a lesson. I used to like him so much, but he ignored me. He's so cold-blooded. If he liked other girls, I could have snatched them away. But he just had to like a guy, and he even liked Brother Chin. He's blind. So what if the Han family wasn't good enough for him? How much money had she invested to support him? Yet, he didn't reciprocate and even acted like this. Sister Wu, don't worry, before you catch him, I'll let him know the consequences of angering you and me in Jiang City. To put it bluntly, Han Susu relied on her power and influence. Whenever she met someone, she would throw some money at them and they would automatically support her. For example, the Spade fan she had interacted with previously. But the youngster didn't fall for it. She had been indignant, and after finding out he was gay, her outburst suited her. Because there were many types of girls in this world. One of them was Han Susu. From the start, Bojio hadn't wanted to interact with her because she had already seen through her character. After a few interactions, Han Susu always looked at Shui Yaoyao with disdain, regardless of whether others had offended her. There wasn't a problem with using money to solve everything. But once she used money, the other party had to reciprocate. Bojio had never thought of herself as a salesperson. She played games, not services. Hence, when the Spade fans came looking for her, Bojio glanced at Qin Xiaodong, standing up slowly. She stuffed a hand into her pocket. Say it again, who is outside? They seem to be your old fans. Qin Xiaodong's voice was low. They want you to give them an explanation. Bojio chuckled. An explanation? They came to my house and want me to give them an explanation. With that, the youngster narrowed her eyes, her gaze sharp. All right, I'll give them an explanation. Wait a minute. Qin Xiaodong rubbed his eyes. The young master's expression was full of hostility. It really didn't look like he was going to give an explanation, but more like he was going to pick a fight. The dozen or so people outside were still making a ruckus. Half of them were people who often hung out with Han Susu. The rest were Spade fans from before. All of their words were the same as before. I like you so much, how can you treat us like this? This time, she wasn't merciful. Without saying a word, he punched the troublemaker who was pushing the driver, Uncle Wang. That punch was very vicious. The man was in so much pain that his face was deformed. The self-proclaimed Spade fan shrieked, "How could you hit him, you?" The scream was not over yet. Bojio laughed, her voice cold. Unfortunately, there's a camera outside my house. You came to cause trouble and even pushed my Uncle Wang 3 times. His glasses are still at my feet, it's not too much for me to hit him. You should be glad that you're all girls. If not, I would have beaten all of you up. With that, the youngster swung her hand and helped Uncle Wang up, her gaze icy. Xiaodong. Chapter 669. Bojio glanced up. Call the police. The self-proclaimed fans of Spade City sneered at the youngster. I never expected you to treat us like this. What did we do to you? Why are you calling the police? Bojio walked over. What grade are you in? The young girl who was obviously in university stilled. What do you mean? I was just asking. It seems like you are already of age. Bojio's voice was calm. That's good. Breaking into private property is enough to detain you for 15 days. The young girl clenched her fists tightly, tears streaming down her face. We like you so much. The word like is insulting enough to make me cry. Bojio's gaze was sharp. I don't care if you cause a ruckus in the competition, but you caused a ruckus in my house and hurt my people. Being used once can be considered innocent, but being used to hurt people all the time isn't pitiful, it's indiscriminate. You can do whatever you want to me, but why do you think I should tolerate you when you hurt my family? Why do you think I should tolerate you? Just because of your unrequited love. We will definitely turn from fans to haters. The police arrived. The people were still shouting. Bojo carried the spinning princess up. Hurry and turn, I'm innocent for being liked so much. Chen Xiaodong wanted to laugh because he could hear the helplessness in her voice. But the young master's next sentence made him confused again. You should follow them to the police station and wait outside. Soon, someone will come to bail them out. Let's see who bailed them out. Bojo caressed the snow-white body of the cat, a nonchalant expression on her face. Chen Xiaodong was puzzled. Young master, how do you know someone will bail them out? It isn't possible so soon. They don't look very old and it would take some time to inform their parents. The person using them doesn't need to be informed. With that, Bojo pressed down on the cat's tail. Aren't you going? Ah! Chen Xiaodong exclaimed. So his young master didn't really want to take care of them for a few days. Instead, he knew the mastermind would take action if he did so. For some reason, Chen Xiaodong felt that his young master had left some leeway for the people who used to like him. If he didn't leave any leeway, young master would definitely bring his lawyer over personally. Even if someone came to bail him out, he might not ask anyone to bail these people out. However, the young master was really ruthless towards the instigators. What were they trying to do by directly grabbing him like this? After the last shareholders' meeting, Chen Xiaodong had seen young master talking to a lawyer. That lawyer was famous in Rivertown. It was said that as long as he accepted a job, he would never lose. However, this person only took orders based on the person. You can't use him just because you have money. How did young master come into contact with that person and make him work for young master? This was a mystery in Chen Xiaodong's heart. In fact, how could a hacker not have a good lawyer? It was easy for Bojo to make someone work for her. Promised to help him track down his ex-wife. Speaking of which, they were partners at most. However, what kind of beauty would abandon such a handsome guy and run away to a faraway place? It's probably because he's not as handsome as the Almighty. Bojo hugged the cat and muttered to herself. She paused because of the pain in her stomach. The princess was still stretching out her claws, swearing not to be a hand warmer anymore. He didn't expect the youth to be so different today. Chapter 670. Every cold-blooded girl would understand. The real pain didn't start from the day the relatives arrived. It started from the day before. After Bojo was done, she carried Princess upstairs. Princess had expected the youngster to open his laptop and create a profile picture or the basement where he could run around and play with the ball. Unexpectedly, this time, the young man just lay down on the bed and pulled away the quilt. The side of his face looked sickly pale. Honestly, the rascal with the weird aura didn't want to play with him anymore. Princess wasn't used to it. He tilted his head and looked left and right. He had an arrogant, round face. He seemed to be deep in thought. When he was done, he reached out with his paw and used his cat cushion to touch the youngster's face. The youngster didn't wake up. Princess didn't feel like a king at home at all. He glanced at the youngster and dragged his voice. Meow, it was a low meow. With one last leap, he jumped onto the bed and curled his warm body into the youngster's arms. Forget it, on account of its master, he would take care of this youngster. Bojo was woken up by a phone call. It was the little butler, Chen Xiaodong. Young master. I saw it. The person who bailed them out. Bojo opened her eyes, her silver hair falling down. She asked slowly, who is it? Chen Xiaodong sounded incredulous. It's Miss Han. That's weird, doesn't she like you? She even wanted to support you, how did she? Oh, it's her. Xiaodong, head over to Lawyer Bai's place and tell him I'm suing Miss Han. Get him to hand over all the evidence and leave the rest to Lawyer Bai. Chen Xiaodong glanced at the clock. Xiaodong, head over to Lawyer Bai's place and tell him I'm suing Miss Han. Chen Xiaodong nodded. After hanging up, he realized that his young master's voice was too hoarse. Was he sick? Chen Xiaodong frowned. His young master couldn't fall sick at this moment, there was a competition tomorrow. But anyone who encountered such a situation wouldn't be affected. When his young master had been splashed with coke, his heart had ached. This time, the other party had come to their house. It was too much. He had to make the culprit with the surname Han suffer. If it was Lawyer Bai, he probably wouldn't be afraid of the Han family. Thinking of this, Chen Xiaodong quickened his pace. As a friend who had just bailed them out, Han Susu comforted the few Spade fans and specially found a place to drink. I didn't expect Big Spade to be so ruthless. Han Susu sighed. Is such a person worth liking? The Spade fans lowered their lids, their eyes filled with resentment. Han Susu hid her smile and pushed the fruit salad forward. Eat something. There are many other players in the esports circle. He's not the only one. When she said this, Han Susu felt that she had vented her anger. But what Han Susu didn't expect was that her party had just begun, and she was about to take them to karaoke. Two police officers walked towards her. Behind the policeman was a man in a suit. Chapter 671. Han Susu smiled, wanting to strike up a conversation. But the person spoke before she could. My side is charging you with slander and instigating others to harass my client. Can you and your group of friends head to the police station? They had just been released and now they were heading to the police station? Was there something wrong with them? Han Susu was obviously not going to agree. I paid bail and now you're asking us to go back. Don't you know who I am and who my brother is? How dare you accuse me? I'll make sure you can't stay in the legal world. That's the legal world, not the legal world. As the man spoke, he reached out to press down on his pure black headphones. Don't your fans have any common sense? Bo Jiao sat up. They seemed to have caught her. Of course. The person turned, his face clear. They're even reporting her family background. Bo Jiao arched a brow. This was Han Susu's style. The person was a lawyer. Lawyers didn't like people repeating the same topic over and over again, thinking they were invincible. Han Susu was still shouting, but this time, she was shouting at the police officer. The person walked over, saying, I even dared to accuse your brother, what more you? Han Susu's face froze. She hadn't expected anyone to arrest her in Jiang City. What was even more unexpected was that after entering the police station, what she faced was not an ordinary situation, but a small interrogation room. All of a sudden, all the energy that she had been yelling just now was gone, leaving only fear. Han Susu had been arrested. As a police officer, Wu Zhen would definitely know about it. But since Wu Zhen had been transferred to the crime squad, these matters weren't within her jurisdiction. Hence, when she came to visit Han Susu's statement had already been recorded. During the interrogation, unrelated personnel weren't allowed in. Hence, even if Wu Zhen came, she would have to wait for the lawyer to finish questioning before she could see Han Susu. What bothered Wu Zhen the most was that the person interrogating Han Susu had the surname Bai. Wu Zhen knew how difficult it was to deal with this lawyer. But who exactly had invited him over? Wu Zhen was still in her uniform and couldn't be too obvious. Once Lawyer Bai left, Wu Zhen used her connections to meet Han Susu. When Han Susu saw her, it was as if she had seen her savior. Sister Wu, give them some money and ask them to let me out quickly. This is not a place for people to stay. It's not about money. Wu Zhen looked at her written confession and thought about the others. Her eyes darkened. The lawyer who is accusing you isn't someone to be trifled with. The questions he asked you are all criminal, so I can't get you out for the time being. He might use this against you and find out who hired him. Who else could it be other than that disgusting gay? Han Susu clenched her fists. I heard them talking on the phone. He was the one who hired this lawyer to arrest me. Good, very good, see how I deal with him after we get out. Hearing this name again, Wu Zhen's eyes darkened. Since that's the case, we should repay him. The sky outside was gradually sinking. At the Fu family's villa. Chapter 672. The slight dampness was obvious. Even though it wasn't a lot, it didn't feel right. Her forehead was covered in sweat. It wasn't painful, but it was a huge drop. Her lower abdomen felt as though there was an ice cube placed on it, unable to warm up. Be it in the past or now, the moment it happened, Bojiu felt as though half of her life had been cut off. Chen Xiaodong thought his young master was having a fever and kept asking, should I call the doctor? Bojiu sat on the sofa, holding onto a steaming cup of ginger brown sugar water. Her voice was lower than usual. No need. How's the matter? Everything is going well. Chen Xiaodong paused. But I'm afraid the Han family won't be willing. Bojiu placed the brown sugar water down, her fingers pressing on her lower abdomen, her voice faint. Even if the Han family isn't willing, they will have to endure it. Chen Xiaodong watched the aloof youngster on the sofa, a sudden realization dawning on him. Even though he knew his young master was different from before. But could a person really change so much? It was as though he was a completely different person. Bojiu seemed to have noticed Chen Xiaodong's gaze. She tilted her head and arched a brow. No, nothing. Chen Xiaodong guessed that he must have been triggered by the past. If he didn't explode in silence, he would die in silence. Young master must have been enlightened after his death. That's why he turned over a new leaf. Bojiu smiled, not saying a word. She knew that Chen Xiaodong was doubtful. No matter who it was, the more they interacted with her, the more they would notice the difference. Han Susu shouldn't have ordered those people to cause trouble at the Fu family. She hadn't wanted to bother with such a person. Besides, it wasn't worth her time. Besides, it was the National League. She would rather use the time to practice her hand speed. But someone wasn't willing to give her the peace. Bojiu glanced at the time on the clock. From the looks of it, the Han family should have started looking for her. As expected, another 15 minutes passed. Bojiu's phone rang. The youngster lowered her lids, swiping the screen with her fingers. The Han family has made their move. The voice on the other end of the phone was calm. They have informed the media to expose you. The young man chuckled. Do those with power and influence really think that they don't have to bear any criminal responsibility for trespassing and slandering others? Do they really think that they can continue to be lawless? Probably. These two words carried a thick sense of mockery. The young man smiled faintly. Then let's teach them a lesson. I heard that you have a lot of evidence of the Han family's bribery. Yes, but it's expensive. The youngster's thin lips curled up slightly. Coincidentally, the one thing I don't lack the most is money. Hackers were generally not very poor. Not to mention that she was from an aristocratic family. 9 accounts, one of which was enough to buy an island. It was enough to buy the Han family's evidence. Sure, but you have to be careful about one thing. Bai Qinya closed the document. Dressed in a suit, he said, the Han family and the Qin family are old friends. Bojiu's gaze deepened. I've never been afraid of the Qin family. Chapter 673. What identity can I have? The youngster leaned back. In his arms was a snow-white cat with a big head. He was wearing a black t-shirt, and the curve of his lips made him look like a demon from a comic book. He was handsome and evil, and his eyes were shining. I'm just an ordinary high school student. Meow. Princess looked up. Youngster, when you said that, did you look at your expression in the mirror? It wasn't ordinary at all. That night, South City Police Station. Han Susu had never expected things to be so serious. Her surname was Han. Why didn't these people seem to be afraid of her? And where was her brother? Why hadn't he appeared yet? Han Susu was so cold she was getting irritated. She slammed her hands on the table. Phone. I want to make a phone call. I want to get a lawyer. Miss Han was used to being arrogant and didn't even care about the police. Seeing her attitude, the people on duty didn't give her the phone even if they could. There were so many cases to work on. They didn't have time to serve her. Han Susu couldn't sit still and started to make a fuss. The person who made a fuss threw a phone to her and stood beside her. Han Susu took the phone and dialed a familiar number. It rang 3 times before it was picked up. Brother, what are you doing? Do you know Susu? Before she could finish, she was interrupted. Something happened at home, you have to suffer for a day. When Han Susu heard this, she was unhappy. Brother, I'm your sister. How can your business be more important than mine? What do you mean by let me suffer for a day? Do you know how broken and cold this police station is? I don't care, give them some money and get a lawyer. Hurry and get me out. The person on the phone didn't speak. This made Han Susu even more unhappy. Brother, what's wrong with you? Speak. I won't get a lawyer for you. It was obvious that the voice on the phone had changed. It was old and sounded like a mezzo-soprano. I always knew you had a bad personality like your mother, but I didn't expect you to be so dirty, ordering people to do bad things. How did the Han family end up with someone like you? Han Susu's back stiffened. Grandma, don't call me grandma. Old Madam Han was very righteous. You should bear the consequences of your own actions. Han Susu's face paled. She didn't expect her grandmother to come back. Her grandmother had never liked her since she was young. In fact, Han Susu had never seen such a vicious old woman who insisted on meddling in her affairs. For her 16th birthday, she invited so many classmates to her house to climb the ladder. Originally, she wanted to show off her wealth. This old woman was great. She said that in the Han family, whoever did that would be kicked out. This was a family rule. Han Susu clenched her fists. She knew that no matter what she said, her grandmother would not pity her. She screamed, "Dad, Dad." Her father doted on her. Since her grandma was back, her father must be there too. Finally, the voice on the other side changed. Susu, calm down. Don't yell. Han Susu burst into tears. Dad, why is Grandma so cruel? She wants me to stay in the police station and not leave. In fact, the phone was on speaker mode. Old Madam Han listened on the side. Hearing this, his eyes darkened. Subsequently. Chapter 674. Susu, how can you say that about Grandma? The old lady's slightly hunched back was still in front of her. Han Susu scoffed. Why can't I say that about her? She knows how evil she is. For you, Grandma has done everything she can to help you. Han Susu wiped her sleeves. Brother, don't worry about her, just think of a way to get me out. Let him think. What could he do? All right, I'll think about it. Old Madame Han listened to the conversation downstairs. Step by step, she sank into the darkness. It seemed like the ancients were right. Wealth didn't last 3 generations. Old man, this family was going to be finished. But the family wasn't scary. How could the human heart be like this? Times have changed, sigh. The old lady's sigh was melancholy. The Han father and son promised to get Han Susu out, regardless of the method. Spade Z's scandal was just one part of the plan. If they didn't relent, they would definitely proceed to the second step. But just as they were about to ask Han Susu to wait, the people from the prosecutor's office arrived. They didn't care if it was night time or not, they detained the father and son. When they saw old Madame Han, one of the former soldiers raised his hand and saluted. Old Madame Han knew that there was no other way. This time, there really wasn't a way. Han Susu was still gloating in the police station. She glanced at the officers on duty. Just you wait, when my father comes, all of you will be crying. She wouldn't let that gay off either. But Han Susu didn't expect that after waiting for an entire night, the bail didn't arrive. Instead, the lawyer she had thought was handsome came. He looked at her as though she was a rat or a cockroach. Han Susu had never been looked at like this before. Just you wait. Just you wait. Take her away. Bai Qinya didn't say much. In reality, there wasn't much to say, it was just a case that he would definitely win. He called the youngster. His voice was calm. Don't touch old Madame Han, continue with the rest. Understood. Bai Qinya took a puff. Where's my payment? The youngster's voice was weak. I send it to your email. Your ex-wife doesn't want to be with you, why don't you think about it? Bai Qinya's voice turned cold. This has nothing to do with you. Ah, yes, you are right. Since that's the case, she wouldn't tell him that his ex-wife is pregnant, he. Bo Jiu hung up and carried Princess over. She hadn't slept for 4 hours because of the pain last night and her expression wasn't good. But it was already the semi-finals. 1:40 p.m. How important this match was. Those who didn't play sports wouldn't know. Hence, they couldn't allow any negative news about Supreme Alliance to come out at this time. The Han family was ruthless. Then she would be even more ruthless than the Han family. At the very least, today, he had to open the game without any reservations. The youngster took the painkiller, raised his head, and sent the medicine down his throat with hot water. He lowered his gaze and tied his shoelaces. With a black backpack on his shoulders, only his black eyes could be seen from his face. Chen Xiaodong looked at him worriedly from behind. Young master, is your body really okay? Everyone knew how strong their opponent was today. Last year, they were ranked 6th in the country. What kind of concept was that? Chapter 675. The moment Chen Xiaodong thought about it, there was a knock on the door. Who could it be? Bo Jiu was still wearing her wrist guard when she glanced up. Chen Xiaodong had already opened the door. Police. The little butler was in a daze. The uniformed Wuxian glanced at Chen Xiaodong, reaching out to push him forward. Her gaze met Bo Jiu's. Fu Jiu, we suspect that you are involved in the maiden sacrifice incident. This is an arrest warrant, please come with us. Chen Xiaodong's eyes widened. What was that? Bo Jiu glanced over, her voice faint. I'm sorry, Officer Wu, I don't know what you're talking about. Bo Jiu glanced over, her voice faint. I'm sorry, Officer Wu, I don't know what you're talking about. Wu Jin glanced over, her voice faint. Bring him along, head to his bedroom and bring his laptop. Wu Jin signaled to both sides with her eyes. Bring him along. Go to his bedroom and bring the computer he used. Yes. That was how the police worked. Everything had happened too suddenly. Qin Xiaodong was still in a daze when they barged into the bedroom. Wu Jin smiled at Bo Jiu. Do you know who told me about you? Li Mengran, she told me everything. Oh. The youngster pulled down her wrist guard, her pale face still devilishly handsome. What did she tell you? How did I confess to her? Wu Jin narrowed her eyes. You know that's not what I'm talking about. Fu Zhou, we know each other. On account of Brother Mo, as long as you're honest, I'll make things easier for you. Officer Wu. The youngster straightened, her lips curving into a smile, her tone unhurried. I've always been a law-abiding citizen, I've never asked the police to make things easier for me. Wu Jin chuckled. Is that so? Follow us in and we'll talk. I've got the laptop. The other two policemen walked over. Wu Jin glanced at the youngster. Bring him away. Young master. Qin Xiaodong panicked, reaching out to grab him. But he knew it was all in vain. Fortunately, he understood his young master's lips. Inform Lawyer Bai. Qin Xiaodong hurriedly nodded, but he was panicking as he watched his young master being taken away. Lawyer Bai. Where was Lawyer Bai's phone number? No phone. Then I'll go to the military compound and look for him at the Bai residence. Wu Jin didn't come with good intentions. Bo Jiu understood. In her past life, she had seen countless police cars. She even drove a car disguised as a police officer. But he had never sat in this position like he did today. His lower abdomen was still hurting. With the princess in his arms. The princess was a magical cat. Even though he had caused a ruckus with Bo Jiu previously, he was now extremely obedient, his gaze fixed on Wu Jin like a tiger. Bo Jiu didn't care if she was caught. If it had been any other day, she wouldn't have cared. But today was different. He raised his hand and glanced at the watch on his wrist. There were less than 3 hours before the match. We have to get out before that happens. Officer Wu, I have a very important match today. I think you know very well what evidence do you have to arrest me now. Wu Jin raised the notebook in her hand. This is the evidence. Number 1 middle school has always been peaceful. It was only during this period of time that there were internet incidents. I've investigated the 2 teachers who were dealt with, and they were all related to you in some way. Chapter 676. Ha, young Master Fu, we'll know after we appraise your computer. Wu Jin glanced at the youngster. Also, the arrest was ordered by the higher-ups, not me. I'm handling it impartially, young Master Fu, don't accuse me wrongly. Oh. Impartially. Bo Jiu lifted her lips. Miss Wu is from the crime squad, but the person you brought is an ordinary police officer. The maiden's sacrifice has always been managed by the crime squad, so the confidentiality shouldn't be low. Since when can a police officer interfere? I'm really curious about the level of impartiality here. The youngster's words hit Wu Jin's weak spot. Wu Jin's face froze. She had indeed hidden this operation from the crime squad. But so what? Since she had a suspect. What was wrong with arresting someone? She couldn't make decisions in the crime squad. She could always make decisions in an ordinary police station. Even if she used some tricks. She didn't think there was anything wrong. Since her family had such a background, she had to make use of it. Su's method was too roundabout. It was easy to deal with this person. If the vice-captain of Supreme Alliance didn't appear on time for the semifinals, it didn't matter if they won or lost. By then, this person would have to face endless criticism. Of course, it would be best if she lost. Because once Supreme Alliance lost, it wouldn't just be the fans who would be disappointed in Spadesy. Even Brother Mo would know that this person wasn't anything special. This person was relying on his status as a member of Supreme Alliance to get close to Brother Mo. She would get all the Supreme Alliance fans to ostracize this person. Through Sue's methods, she knew how easily the fans could be incited. Strangers might not even attack Spadesy. But these fans were different. One second they said they liked him, but the next, they splashed him. She had to thank these Spade fans. Without them, she wouldn't have achieved her goal. When Wuzhen thought of this, her displeasure at the youth's provocation dissipated. She turned to look at the cat in the youngster's arms. But the more she looked, the darker her gaze became. Princess had never allowed her to carry him. Even when she appeared at the Qin family's house, he wouldn't stop meowing. He was indeed a beast, he couldn't even tell who he should be with. Wuzhen glanced at the cat again. When they reached the police station, Bojiu entered the interrogation room. Wuzhen laughed lightly. "Let me take care of Princess." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand. The cat in the young man's arms gave her a claw. And it was Wuzhen's face. There was a loud noise. Wuzhen's eyes widened in pain. She wanted to drag the cat over and throw it to its death. Bojiu turned and pulled Princess back, her gaze cold as ice. "Officer Wu, you don't look like a police officer now." With that, the teenager turned his head and asked the other policeman, "Where's the interrogation room? Aren't you going to appraise my computer? Do you need me to tell you the password?" "No need." Wuzhen held her chin where there were a few red marks. "Young Master Fu, don't worry. We will investigate slowly until we get to the bottom of this and clear your name." It was just one sentence. Bojiu knew what Wuzhen wanted to do. This person was trying to stall for time. No one handled a case like this. However, this was China. You can't be impulsive with the police. That would disqualify her from the competition. As time passed, the youth's face turned even paler. Other than the pain, the temperature in the interrogation room was also extremely low. It wasn't a good feeling for Bojiu. But that wasn't important. Chapter 677. It was 12:53 p.m. Jiang City's esports competition venue. Outside the glass doors, almost 1,000 spectators were checking their tickets. It was different from the previous competitions. This was the checkpoint for the finals. From this match onwards, every match in the future would not only be broadcasted on the internet, but it would also be broadcasted on some satellite channels. They witnessed the ability of esports professionals to attract fans. Of course, no one would miss out on such a competition. From afar, every team had someone holding up a poster, usually there to support their favorite esports player. In less than an hour, the competition was about to begin. The members of the ferocious Tiger team had changed into their uniforms and were discussing their tactics. Supreme Alliance's atmosphere was different. Lin Feng turned towards the wall clock once more, his brows furrowed. "Why isn't he here yet? Is he still on the way?" someone asked. Shui Yaoyao held onto her phone, shaking her head at the others. Lin Feng's eyes dimmed, sensing something was amiss. Still no one picking up. How did this happen? Based on Little Spade's personality, he should have arrived long ago for such an important competition. Why wasn't he here at this hour? 12:55 p.m. The youngster's eyes darkened. She couldn't place all her hopes on Qin Xiaodong finding by Qin Ye. When the police came in, Bojo said calmly that she was going to call her lawyer, but in reality, she was calling Feng Yi. Wujin wasn't aware of this. Wujin was still trying to get more evidence against the youngster so that he wouldn't be able to attend the competition and wouldn't be able to leave so easily. When Feng Yi received the call, the contours of his face changed. But when he received the call, there wasn't any hesitation. After hanging up, he called the lawyer in charge of all matters in the Qin family. Feng Yi knew that once he used the Qin family's connections, Almighty Qin would definitely receive the news. Almighty Qin would definitely receive the news and wouldn't pretend to be peaceful like last time. He might even stop his treatment and come back immediately. At this stage, Feng Yi didn't want to think about it anymore. This matter could only be resolved with the Qin family's connections. On the other side, Chen Xiaodong used all his strength to enter the military courtyard. The Bai family told him that young Master Bai had gone to the airport and it was impossible to chase him at this hour. This was probably why Bai Qianye had turned off his phone. Chen Xiaodong was so anxious that he was about to cry, but there was nothing he could do. He had never wanted someone to help him as much as he did now. He looked up at the clock hanging on the wall. 1:5. The match would begin in half an hour. Young Master was still locked up in the police station. Madam was not at home. For the first time in his life, Chen Xiaodong tasted the feeling of being helpless. South of the city, in the interrogation room, Wujin sat opposite the youngster with a cup of warm water in her hand, but it wasn't for the youngster. Young Master Fu doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Bojo arched a brow. She placed her left elbow on her abdomen and remained silent. Chapter 678. Bojo glanced at Wujin, her lips lifting into a smile. Her abnormally fair complexion made her look like a noble vampire walking in the night. Who told you I called Bai Qianye? No matter who you're calling, you'll have to bear the consequences of your crime. Wujin suppressed the disgust she had for the youngster, picking up the pen beside her. Let's talk about the case. Where were you at 8 p.m. on the 26th of December? Bojo replied faintly, home. Who can prove it? Wujin narrowed her eyes. Bojo laughed. Of course it's my family. Wujin knew she wouldn't be able to make any substantial progress. She changed her direction. There aren't many people like you who are talented in hacking. Did you feel great when you stole your own account during the Jiangxing Rookie Selection Contest? Bojo glanced at Wujin, her abdomen throbbing. She gathered her energy, thinking about the hidden meaning behind the question. No, I just felt that I managed to protect myself. As for stealing an account, anyone with a little knowledge of computers would be able to do it. That would make me a hacker in Officer Wu's eyes. There are way too many hackers in the world. Wujin's gaze dimmed. This is the first time I've seen someone quibble. According to young Master Fu, even if you knew what happened to Li Mengran, you wouldn't feel anything for that teacher from your school. How is that possible? Bojo replied naturally. Even if I wasn't her friend, I wouldn't feel that someone like Mengran isn't fit to be a teacher. Wujin pressed closer. That's why you wanted to follow him and deal with him, right? Officer Wu. Bojo's voice was calm. Your conjecture sounds like something you would see in dramas, but it's a pity it's just a thought. I'm just a high school student after all, my results are in the teacher's hands. What do you think I can do? Wujin hadn't expected there to be no progress after asking so many questions. An ordinary person. Staying in this temperature for more than 2 hours was already unbearable. She couldn't understand how the youngster managed to do it. He was so stubborn, she couldn't bite through it no matter what. Wujin picked up her notebook, slamming the door shut. She wanted to see how long this gay could last. The closer it was to the start of the match, the more anxious he would be. She didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. The dark tide was lethal to Bojo. She was in so much pain that she broke out in cold sweat. She felt a chill in her abdomen and felt a dull pain. She reached out and grabbed the leg of the metal table. There were still 20 minutes left. She had to go to the competition. Here we are. Feng Yi should have arrived. When the youth opened his eyes again, there was sweat on his forehead, but it did not affect the clarity in his eyes at all. No one knew what kind of willpower she was relying on to persevere. Time was still ticking away. Feng Yi brought the Qin family's lawyer and went straight to the bureau chief. The branch chief didn't know what was going on. He didn't know what the maiden's sacrifice was all about. However, since the Wu family had informed them that they had caught a suspect and brought him in for questioning, he didn't think it was a big deal. But now, the Qin family's lawyer had appeared. Only then did the bureau chief realize that there was something wrong with this. But since the case was moving forward, it couldn't be casually ended. Chapter 679. The bureau chief wasn't stupid, he didn't want to offend anyone. The Qin family's lawyer had Director Huang's number, hence, it wasn't difficult to contact him. What did you say? Arrest? When did I give the order to arrest someone? Director Huang was confused. The maiden's sacrifice was classified as a top secret, and even if they were to arrest someone, the crime squad would be the ones to do it personally. I understand, if Director Huang didn't give the order, it means your men are abusing their rights. My client is still being interrogated. As a member of Supreme Alliance, he has an important competition today. You should know about it, it's related to esports and he has to participate immediately. Director Huang, it's best if you come over personally. If we lose this competition, be it you, me, or anyone else, it won't be easy. Supreme Alliance. Esports competition. Even if Director Huang didn't play games, he knew how important this competition was to a certain someone. Who would be so reckless as to arrest his team member at this time? Director Huang didn't dare to waste a single second. He was afraid that if he was late, something would really happen. A certain someone wouldn't help him investigate another case. Qingnan Police Station. There was a password on the computer. It wasn't difficult to crack the password on the computer. The police had professionals in this field. However, after looking around, he didn't find any traces of hacking into other computers. Other than Hero, there was only an ordinary laptop on the table. The other hard drives were all normal. He stood up, shaking his head at Wu Jin. Wu Jin didn't give up. Take another look, there's definitely something inside. I've already looked through it 3 times, the information on the preview device shows that it only shows the user's official Weibo. There's nothing wrong with this laptop. Wu Zhen's eyes sunk. What about the live stream? Did he do any live streams? The officer shook his head. There isn't any live stream software installed on this computer. Wu Zhen wanted to ask more. At this moment, it wasn't just the officer in charge, even Director Huang strode in. Feng Yi and the Qin family's lawyer followed behind. The moment Director Huang saw Wu Zhen, he immediately understood who was using the crime squad's name to do this. He stopped in his tracks, and his expression was unprecedentedly serious. The person you captured, where is he now? Director Huang. At first, Wu Zhen felt a little guilty at the sight of such a group of people. But on second thought, she was just arresting someone for questioning. She didn't do anything to anyone, so she replied nonchalantly, the suspect is still being interrogated. Director Huang hadn't expected such an attitude from Wu Zhen, his voice turning cold. When did I ever order you to arrest him? How is he a suspect? I believe that every member of the crime squad has the right to arrest and interrogate. Wu Zhen's words made everything sound reasonable. The Qin family's lawyer recognized Wu Zhen. He took a step forward and said faintly, "Since Miss Wu says so, I would like to ask if you have any concrete evidence to prove my client is a suspect." The evidence is still there, before Wu Zhen could finish her sentence. Chapter 680. Wu Zhen's face paled. She hadn't expected the Qin family's lawyer, whom she often saw, to be so merciless. Wu Zhen wanted to say something. The other party only gave her 2 words, "Let him go." Wu Zhen clenched her fists even though she wasn't happy about it. She had to get someone to release Bo Jiu personally. There was a faint red mark on one of her wrists due to the long period of time. But it couldn't be compared to the pain coming from her abdomen. Feng Yi was the first to enter. When he saw Bo Jiu, his eyes dimmed. He turned towards Wu Zhen. "Miss Wu, can't you tell he isn't feeling well? Even if you want to interrogate him, why do you have to do it in such a room? Are you interrogating a suspect or what?" Feng Yi. Bo Jiu stood up, swinging her wrists. Her left hand pressed against her abdomen while her right hand carried Princess. Competition. In that instant, Feng Yi couldn't describe the feeling. He gritted his teeth. "The car is outside. If we go now, we can still make it for the last 5v5 match. What are you waiting for?" The youngster glanced over, her gaze sharp. "Let's go." Feng Yi nodded, glancing at Wu Zhen behind him. The Qin family's lawyer walked over. "You guys go ahead, leave this to me. Don't worry, old friends understand that your team members won't be taken advantage of. Besides, this is the brother that our young master has acknowledged personally. This matter won't end just like that, even if the other party is from the Wu family." "I'm relieved to hear that." Feng Yi didn't stay any longer, entering the car with the youngster. Director Huang stood behind the 2 of them. He felt that the Major Crimes Division had really touched someone's sore spot this time. Even if that someone wasn't around. Once the Qin family's lawyer took action, not long after, someone far away would receive the news. Director Huang reached out to rub his head, realizing that he only had 2 or 3 strands of hair left. He was puzzled. Why did Wu Zhen pick this youngster out of all people? Didn't she know how much a certain someone doted on the youngster? According to a certain someone's personality, he wouldn't tolerate anyone bullying him. This matter. Even the Wu family's name wouldn't be of any use. The other side. The first thing she did after receiving the phone was to open the live stream channel. It was almost 2:00. The 1v1 had already begun. The situation was unfavorable for Supreme Alliance. After all, the other party was a strong team. In addition, they seemed to have studied every Supreme Alliance member's playstyle. The contestant that was sent out was to deal with Yin Weiyao. Bo Jiu had never seen Uncle in such a difficult fight. Even if he safely returned to the city, his HP would be low. Moreover, every time he returned to the city, it meant that there would be one less tower. This tug-of-war continued for some time. It wasn't easy for Yin Weiyao to kill his opponent with one big move. The tower at the bottom lane was already broken into pieces. The following defense became more and more difficult. Until he failed in the end. Bo Jiu pressed her abdomen and sent a voice message to Lin Feng. 2v2, switch players, you and Yun who will go together. The other side replied immediately, "Okay, that's what we're planning to do. Coco can't deal with the enemy, they're very strong." Bo Jiu had just finished listening to this message. The second message was about to be sent. Chapter 681. Alright. When Bo Jiu said this word, her lips were pale to the extreme. But there was a smile on her face. Feng Yi wasn't the only one who knew. Along the way, the youngster's only action was to drink 2 painkillers. Feng Yi watched her worriedly. How were they going to fight the 5v5? But if Spade Z didn't participate, Supreme Alliance would definitely lose. Do you need me to do anything? Feng Yi couldn't understand the youngster's condition, but it seemed to be a stomachache. Is it because the interrogation room is too cold and you haven't eaten anything? Bo Jiao held onto her arm. She didn't explain further, glancing up with a sheen of sweat. What time is it now? Feng Yi knew what she meant, turning towards the driver. Take a shortcut. The shortcut is a little bumpy, young Master Zhou's body. Bo Jiao hugged the cat, her voice deep. It's fine. Young Master Zhou, sit tight. The driver's driving skills weren't bad, it was obvious he had been avoiding the media. But along the way, Feng Yi could only see the youngster's pale face, her bent waist against her stomach. It was unbearable. Do you want some hot water? Feng Yi suggested getting out of the car. Bo Jiao glanced up, her voice raspy due to the pain. Let's head to the venue, give me a cigarette. Cigarettes could stop the pain. Feng Yi watched as the youngster lowered her head to light the cigarette. In that instant, he was reminded of a person who had suffered a wrist injury. At that time, his fingertips had been stained with blood, but he had been focused on the competition. But that time, he hadn't made it. This time, he hoped time would wait for them. Outside the car window, another red light lit up. Bo Jiao was in pain, but her attention didn't shift away from the live stream. In the venue, Lin Feng's character had died once. This wasn't good for Supreme Alliance. Supreme Alliance had lost the previous 1v1. If he were to lose this match again, he would definitely die. Then, all the fans tightened their grip on their clothes. The first revival is less than 20 seconds, Yunhu should be able to hold on for 20 seconds, but he will have to lose a defense tower. The shoutcaster's voice rang out. The situation isn't looking good. Spade Z isn't here either. The other shoutcaster sighed. The presence or absence of the captain will directly affect the morale of the team. Moreover, Supreme Alliance has lost the first round. It seems like there's no way to salvage the situation. Actually, this isn't Supreme Alliance's strongest lineup. Qin Mo isn't here. There's nothing we can do about it. Winning or losing is what matters in a competition, not anything else. Inside the car, Feng Yi could hear the analysis of the two men. He glanced up, glancing at her. They can win. The youngster's voice was calm, but his eyes were bright. He said he would leave me a 5v5, so he will definitely leave it for me. At that moment, Feng Yi didn't say anything else, turning to the driver. Drive faster into the venue, I'll handle the follow-up work. Not until the last moment. He would never give up. This had always been the spirit Supreme Alliance conveyed to everyone. As a manager, he felt that he should not lower himself too much. Wasn't it just another round of drinks with the staff? It was fine as long as he could arrive on time. Lin Feng, who had died once, was clearly more reserved. His fighting style also became more conservative. At this moment, Yunhu, who had been guarding the tower, stopped. He had an empty hand. Chapter 682. Yunhu's black hair was covered with a huge gaming earpiece. His handsome side profile was calm and composed. Coward, use your method and start fighting. Little Spade will be here soon, he might even be watching our match. As a senior, are you going to lose? Yunhu's eyes lit up. I'm going to lose. Lin Feng turned. I'm going to show you right now. Some people weren't suited to using psychological methods. But Lin Feng was the complete opposite. After hearing his good brother's words, his entire person changed. When the corners of his mouth curled up, even his face looked arrogant and domineering. Ha 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 ha, the scum on the other side, come on, I'm going to catch you. Zhu Feng, you sneak attack and tell them. What's wrong with that? Hurry, tiger, bottom lane. The people on the other side really thought that they were going to team up to take the bottom lane. Who knew that the top lane was still returning to the city? Halfway through, a figure appeared. It was Lin Feng, who had turned invisible. Now that he appeared, he used a big move and a stab. KO. The person who died was speechless. What happened to catching people at the bottom lane? The moment that person finished his sentence. In less than half a minute, another sound effect came from the screen. Double kill. Jungle battle. It turned out that the catch was Yun Hu forcing the people at the bottom lane into the jungle near the top lane. After Lin Feng killed the first person, he turned back to surround the second person with Yun Hu. Some people said that only the Yun Feng duo could execute such a coordination. Chemistry. It was as if he had penetrated into their every move. Neat claps. They continued their ambush. This wasn't an easy win. When the word victory rang out, Lin Feng removed his earpiece, looking at Yun Hu. Tell me, how am I a coward? I don't know how domineering I am. Yun Hu stood up. At first, he didn't say anything. Instead, he reached out and pulled the guy in front of him into his arms. He smiled faintly, but it was filled with black-bellied intent. You are so handsome I can't describe it. Ha ha ha, tiger, you have good taste. Lin Feng laughed heartily and patted his brother's shoulder. Our 10 years of friendship is because you speak the truth. You must maintain this advantage. The opposing team also took off their headphones and asked the person beside them, is he usually like this? Always. I really didn't expect that I would be killed twice by such a person. My condolences. Don't underestimate someone with a low EQ. The couple's fans looked at each other. Would such a slow person have any bones left after meeting Yunda? However, none of this mattered now. The important thing was that it was a draw with 1 win and 1 loss. Now it all depended on the 5v5. Everyone turned their attention to the dueling area. There was 1 person missing. If the contestants on the list didn't show up, the match would be automatically judged as the winner. 30 seconds passed. There were no changes to the seats on the opponent's stands. The commentator sighed regretfully and was about to pull the microphone over. There was a swoosh sound. The door swung open. The cameras focused on the youngster they were most familiar with. That person, one hand pressed against the wall, his thin lips pale but his voice was clear. I choose assassin, with jungler skills. The equipment in the esports arena was very advanced. Usually, there would be voice recognition equipment. The moment the youngster finished his sentence, a line of words appeared on the big screen along with the sound effect. Chapter 683. In an instant, the crowd was filled with cheers. Every Spade fan was looking at the youngster walking towards the arena. Lin Feng smiled too. Only the other 4 members near the youngster paused. Feng Shang stuttered, "Oh idol, what your face?" Bojo's face was so pale that even her lips were affected. Shui Yao noticed the youngster's movements after sitting down, her eyes filled with worry. She still remembered how painful it had been the last time His Highness Zhou had been like this. As a girl, she knew very well that some people with menstrual cramps could even faint when their relatives came to visit. This wasn't an exaggeration. Shui Yao sat beside Bojo, her gaze sweeping over the youngster's hand, and she stilled. It was a handcuff mark. What exactly had His Highness Joe experienced before coming here? Had he really been invited by the police to understand the situation? The youngster glanced over, her gaze dark. Focus on the competition, baby Feng, you and Yao Yao will go together. Yes. Swoosh. The game officially began. A competition was a competition. There wasn't time for anyone to pay attention. But even so, the opposing team noticed Bojo's abnormality. This is a chance. Kill Spade Z, Roger. The two players in the bottom lane and middle lane merged into one team, skimming towards the wilderness. Spade Z was an assassin, so he would definitely attack the beasts first. The youngster was indeed there. After getting the red beast, he didn't have much HP left. The two of them saw this opportunity and wanted to launch a sneak attack. But they didn't expect. The opponent actually turned invisible at this moment. And the Supreme Alliance could clearly hear the youngster's orders. Feng Shang, Yao Yao, Wild Red. With such a close distance, it was the best to stop the enemy from attacking the wilderness. Feng Shang and Yao Yao retreated, skimming towards the wilderness at the same time. The enemy knew they couldn't leave, so they chose to fight directly. Anyway, one of them had stolen Spade Z's red beast, so his attack had a slowing effect. 2 against 2. They might not lose. But they didn't expect. Spade Z, who had less than a third of his HP left, didn't return to the city. Instead, he hid in the bushes, and when the battle started, he stabbed over. KO. He had forcefully obtained the first clear of the battle. Feng Shang and Yao Yao didn't have much HP left. But in this situation, the other person didn't dare to fight anymore and quickly ran back. The youngster moved the mouse and followed behind that person. The man jumped into the tower. Bojo paused. Clenching his fists, he turned around and ran towards the center of his city. Why didn't you cross the tower to kill him? What a pity. How is he going to cross the tower with that kind of HP? Besides, Spade Z probably doesn't have any big moves left and the opponent isn't low on HP. He'll be the one dying if he crosses the tower, bro. Taking one life is already impressive. Supreme Alliance is probably going to win. Not necessarily. Have you forgotten about their assassin? The opponent's assassin, Lin Chintao. It was probably because Lin Chintao had been too quiet that everyone had forgotten. This team was so strong because of Lin Chintao. He was one of the top assassins in the country. His skills weren't any worse than Spade Z. In the next second, he returned a life to Supreme Alliance. Not only did he succeed in killing Coco, he even stole the blue beasts in Supreme Alliance's jungle. Chapter 684. This match is going to be tough for Supreme Alliance. Everyone knows Lin Chintao's assassin is getting better at the later stages. I'm curious, is Spade Z's assassin better than Lin Chintao's? It seems like this isn't just a battle between teams, it's also a battle of the vice-captain's ability. It's here again. Lin Chintao killed another person. It's 2-1, no, it's a tie. The moment Lin Chintao's blade landed, Spade Z immediately took his second life. Just like that, the two of them started to retaliate. Lin Chintao was quiet because he could see the youngster's discomfort. In fact, he had been anticipating this match before the start of the competition. Ever since he had teamed up with Little Spade on the Japanese server. He had been itching for a huge battle. But when the match started, the youngster didn't appear. Until the 5v5, when he sat in front of the computer with a pale face. Lin Chintao knew this wasn't the match he wanted. But when the youngster took his first life, Lin Chintao smiled. He broke into a smile. The best way to respect your opponent is to give it your all. Little Spade, regardless of how uncomfortable you are, this is a competition, I won't be merciful. KO. The Third Life. To a game character with low HP, an assassin like Lin Chintao was a nightmare. On Supreme Alliance's side, everyone except for Bo Jiao and Shui Yaoyao had died once. Supreme Alliance is indeed in trouble, the shoutcaster said. The other person tilted his head. That might not be the case, the number of kills is clearly the same. Haven't you noticed? The shoutcaster's eyes dimmed. Since the start of the match, Spade Z hasn't even had the time to fight in the jungle. With the reminder, the other shoutcaster reacted. You mean Spade Z's teammate? Other than Lin Chintao, there's Tian Jing, his killing partner. On Supreme Alliance's side, Lin Feng and Yun, who have already appeared in the 2v2 and north of Yin Mountain, is in the 1v1. As for the rest, who do you think can stop Tian Jing? No one. In other words, the outcome of this match had already been decided. Before the semi-finals, there had never been a match as long as this one. Be it Lin Chintao's team or Supreme Alliance's team, the previous team battle had been exceptionally swift. Today, however, it was dragged out a little longer. In the end, both sides only had one defense tower left, and the rest was the city. At this moment, life and death became crucial. Of the two teams, only Spade Z and Lin Chintao hadn't died. When the pain came, Bo Jiao's fingers paused for a moment. But it only paused for a moment. Then, he led his troops to the top of the road. Shui Yaoyao, who was waiting to be revived, looked at the youngster's hand. Her wrist moved along with the mouse, rubbing against the mouse pad again and again. How much it hurts. Shui Yaoyao didn't know. However, she had seen His Highness Zhou's pain. He was very clear in his heart. How was the youngster holding on? At this moment, the camera panned to her face. At this moment. Only then did people notice that the young man's expression seemed a little off. Pale lips and sweat on his forehead. No matter how handsome his side profile was. It was also heart-wrenching white. Lin Feng stood up and turned to look at Feng Yi. Chapter 685. What exactly had he been through? No one knew. Some of Spade Z's fans started to panic. However, they knew very well that any excessive noise at this time would affect the youth's performance. It's here. The real battle between the two assassins. Lin Chintao stood in front of the city, his long spear behind him, his robe fluttering. Wait a minute, it isn't just Lin Chintao, there's also Tian Jing. In that instant, everyone's heart was clenched. It wasn't realistic for Spade Z to turn back. But it was obvious that the youngster had no intention of turning back. The only thing left in those extremely black eyes was the other party's city. 1v2. It's a 1v2 now. You mean to go head on? This is Supreme Alliance's only chance, the others haven't revived yet. As long as Spade Z wins, we can take down the city. But it's impossible to win 1v2, that's Lin Chintao and Tian Jing. Wait a minute, what's that? On the screen, Spade Z leaped to the side, but instead of attacking Lin Chintao, he dodged into the bushes before stabbing towards Tian Jing. Due to the speed, no one could see the youngster's movements clearly. All they could see was the silver gleam on the youngster's uniform. The screen was filled with silver, and everyone couldn't help but suck in a deep breath. 3,000 knife cutting. That's Almighty Qin's 3,000 knife cutting. In the past, there had been Qin fans who had looked down on Spade Z and tried to pull him into a CP. At this moment, even they were stunned. 3,000 knife cutting. The reason why it was called 3000 knife cutting was because of the perfect combination of assassination angle and maneuvering. When killing, the speed was so fast that it created a visual illusion. The movement couldn't be seen, only the flash of silver. Even the movement of his sleeve seemed to carry an invincible aura. Beautiful. Even the shoutcaster couldn't help exclaiming. The next moment, the music started playing. KO. Tianjing fell heavily to the ground. The silver gleam hadn't landed. The youngster's fingers clicked. It was a rhythmic movement. She waved the mouse, tilting it to the left, forming an arc of attack. Lin Chintao did not retreat. Instead, he welcomed the attack with a big move. The youth began to move beautifully again. But this time, Lin Chintao spoke up. "Let's die together, little spade." Double kill. When these two words flashed across the screen, people didn't even have time to be surprised. The youngster's hand seemed to have missed. The last drop of HP was also wiped out by the minions that came out. Home. This was the first time since the game started. This was the first time people had seen a young man die in battle. The two commentators also paused for a moment. What he did just now. There's something wrong with his technique. He must have been affected by his body. In other words, if it wasn't for his discomfort, Spade Z could have taken a step back, recovered some HP, and attacked the city. When the young man uttered the word home, Lin Sanju's eyes widened. Everyone felt their breaths tighten. Supreme Alliance was annihilated. Meanwhile, the three of them had already been revived. Shui Yao Yao gripped the mouse tightly. 1918. It was too late. With 4 seconds left, the enemy had already brought his troops to Supreme Alliance's city center. Shui Yao Yao ran out. Just then, there was a crisp and piercing sound effect. Chapter 686. Failed. Supreme Alliance, lost. The sound in the esports venue seemed to have been blocked by something. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Their eyes stared blankly and their expressions were blank. Shui Yao Yao had just revived, her fingers still in a charging position. But it was too late. The words dimmed. Shui Yao Yao's heart felt empty. The youngster's handsome side profile was still imprinted on the screen, the fringe on his forehead damp from the sweat, covering his eyes. Other than his thin lips and nose, all his expression was covered by his silver hair. However, people couldn't erase that scene from their minds. Because the youngster had never looked like this. The corners of his mouth were no longer curled up, the white cat was still nestled beside his hand, looking a little dazed. Supreme Alliance, lost? They still couldn't believe it. Especially when they saw the youngster. Every Spade Z fan couldn't help but reach out to cover their lips. They were afraid they would cry. They still remembered the first time they were infatuated with the youngster. Some people were there because of the first clear king who had appeared out of nowhere in Area C, who had never died before. Some of them were because of an online live broadcast. At that time, the youngster swept his long sword and there was no one within a meter radius. Some of them were because of a video. That person looked straight into the camera and said, "Justice may be late, but it will never be absent." Now, such an indestructible person had lost. He had worked so hard. Everyone could see his hard work. Someone had to give a concluding speech for this match. The shoutcaster cleared his throat. The results are out, the semi-finalists are. The Supreme Alliance members sitting in their chairs couldn't hear the sounds around them, as though their pressure points had been sealed. That kind of depression and sadness seemed to have seeped into everyone's heart. Coco lowered his head, his fingers clenched tightly. He couldn't accept it. He really couldn't accept it. The fans also had this unwillingness to accept it. If Almighty Qin was here, it wouldn't be like this. Spade Z's last move was too risky. If he had turned back, he might have been able to buy some time. Anyway, I don't understand why he was made the vice-captain. That's enough, didn't you see Big Spade? He doesn't have to participate if he's not feeling well. That's right. He's not feeling well and yet he came to compete. He even implicated our Coco and Almighty Lin. I'm really speechless. Pa! Lin Feng pulled out his chair. He immediately stood up. He looked at some of the fans behind him. If it wasn't for Little Spade, we wouldn't have been able to make it this far. The results are right there, 12 kills, 1 death and 7 assists. In the end, he was the only one holding the fort. We were the ones dragging him down, not the other way around. Lin Feng's words put some people on the spot. They didn't think that they were wrong. God Lin, have changed. If you speak like that, we won't like it. Lin Feng stuffed a hand into his pocket. Up to you. Do you like it or not? Those people still wanted to say something. At this moment, all the Supreme Alliance members stood up and stood behind Lin Feng. There was no such thing as a sore loser. Just a little. No one could bully their team members. Even if they were fans. Chapter 687. But the next second, the youngster walked over. He placed his left hand on Lin Feng's shoulder. When he glanced up, it was still that face. Even though it was pale to the point of being devoid of blood. But he still had silver hair and black eyes, so handsome that it took one's breath away. There's no need. It was a very light word. Lin Feng glanced down. The youngster's wrist was so red that it looked like it was about to bleed. Even so, was there a need? It wasn't necessary for her. The youngster knew what the world was like. And he knew what human nature was like. A loss is a loss. The youngster stood there. Tall and straight like a pine tree in winter. But even so. Shui Yao Yao saw the youngster's clenched fists hidden under the uniform. It must be painful. During the game. What exactly was he relying on? And now, what was he relying on for the youngster to stand there and admit defeat? It was to preserve the last shred of Supreme Alliance's dignity. Some of the fans couldn't say anything else. After all, everyone could see the youngster's state. Even if he lost. He didn't have any intention of finding an excuse. Shui Yao Yao turned her head. If she had been stronger, the outcome wouldn't have been like this. When did we start to learn to cry? When did we feel sad, wronged, and disappointed? When did we learn to force the tears back into our eyes and stare unwaveringly at the gazes coming from all directions? There was a type of growth that always made people wear armor and not fear the darkness. It was because they believed that they would see the light one day. The ceremony always had to end perfectly. The youngster represented Supreme Alliance. He had to go up and shake hands with the other team's captain. Right at this moment. Clang! The door was pushed open. A tall and slender figure strolled over from the light of time. The members of Supreme Alliance froze the moment they turned around. That person had a handsome face that everyone present was familiar with. His chiseled side profile carried a coldness that was as sharp as a blade. The combat uniform he was wearing made him look like a commander from Star Trek. The white gloves on his hands fit perfectly without leaving any gaps. If it was a name, shouting it out would make people feel powerful. That was the kind of existence he was. Brother Mo. The youngster hadn't started. Then, she was pulled into the man's embrace. Following that, a magnetic voice rang out. You're being bullied like this when I'm not around. You're really something. One could imagine the uproar at the scene. It wasn't just that there were thousands of people watching. There were also live broadcasts on various major online platforms. Manager Fong stretched out his hand and pressed his aching forehead. Why didn't anyone inform him that the Almighty was back? He hugged her as if there was no one else around. How many questions would he have to deal with this afternoon? The Almighty was really stirring up trouble the moment he came back. However, this was also good. Sometimes, he really didn't know how to comfort little Spade. He had seen a lot of things, but when he faced the youth, he always felt that he was not a high school student. Unlike the Almighty. It seemed that no matter what the youth looked like, in front of him, he was a little brother who should be pampered. Bojo didn't feel like she was being bullied, but because of the Almighty's scent, she couldn't help burying her face into his chest. Chapter 688. As a single person, Lin Chintao hadn't expected to witness such a scene during a handshake. He coughed heavily. Hey, pervert Qin, at least show me some respect. Qin Mo arched a brow, glancing over and reaching his right hand out. Lin Chintao was about to start chatting when Qin Mo interrupted him calmly. Qin Mo interrupted him faintly. I watched the 5v5 live stream just now. Your method of killing isn't bad. Lin Chintao froze. Was pervert Qin praising him? Was it going to rain red? Qin Mo continued, 2 against 1, where's your integrity as the top assassin in the country? Lin Chintao. Wait a minute, who said that heroes couldn't be 2 against 1? Everyone was 2 against 1. Besides, it didn't matter how many people there were in a team battle, one shouldn't be afraid and just fight. Why was it that when it came to him, 2 against 1, it was shameless? On the screen, Lin Chintao's expression was deep. Qin Mo didn't give him a chance to express his thoughts, releasing his hand, his tone casual but bloodthirsty. I will return the favor in the future. Lin Chintao. No, Almighty, be reasonable, didn't I just kill your little Spade once? But now, where's your integrity? Where's your bearing? What an exciting scene. The shoutcaster was needed to smooth things over even though the handshake wasn't that exciting. Yeah, it seems like this failure has ignited Qin Mo's competitive spirit. This might not be a bad thing for Supreme Alliance. But it's a pity that Supreme Alliance didn't enter the semifinals. Everything has come to an end. Come to an end. Ha ha ha, old song, have you forgotten? According to the rules, there will always be a revival match. Of course, only one team has the right to participate in the revival match, and that is the team with the most MVPs. Look at Spade Z's results. Even if he lost, his total score is still higher than the winning team. Supreme Alliance still has hope of entering the National League. As long as they can win 3 matches, they will be revived. Of course, it won't be easy. According to the previous years, they have to defeat all the top 10 teams in the country, so it will be difficult to win completely. No matter what, there is still hope. This was the first time Bojo heard of such a competition. She arched a brow and asked Qin Mo, revival match? Yes. Qin Mo glanced sideways, his breath caressing her ear. So it doesn't matter even if we lose, we can still win. Bojo placed a hand on her abdomen, her lips pale. Finally, there was a smile in her eyes. Lin Chintao. The two of them were whispering. Was no one going to stop them? Knowing that they still had a chance to participate in the competition, everyone in Supreme Alliance couldn't hide their excitement. Even some fans felt the same way. He was so excited that he wanted to rush out and run a few rounds. In fact, the real fans just wanted to see these people continue to play, even if it was just one more match. There was always someone or a group of people who carried all the memories of your youth. To them, Supreme Alliance was a vessel. Many years later, they might forget the feeling of liking someone so much. However, he couldn't forget those people in battle uniforms. Their eyes were red, but they still stood tall and straight. They were Supreme Alliance. Chapter 689. She had been able to hold on during the competition. But now, it had ended. The pain had been excruciating. Once they were out, she asked for a cigarette from Feng Yi. But the moment she took a puff, it was snatched away. It was the Almighty. His deep gaze swept past the youngster's hand, his gaze cold. Carry you or carry you, choose one. Bo Jiu leaned back, chuckling lightly. Brother Mo, I'm not that weak. Qin Mo didn't want to waste any more time on this topic, bending over and carrying her up. At this moment, some of the fans had yet to leave. A wave of shrieks erupted. Bo Jiu paused. The only thing she could think of was carrying him, at least she wouldn't have to press against the Almighty's back. Good my ass. Feng Yi wanted to rub his head again. He could predict that the number of calls he would receive would increase tenfold. How was he going to explain? He could just say that Little Spade wasn't feeling well. Yes, that was it. Young Master. Even Deputy Zhang, who had followed Qin Mo back from America, froze when he saw his young master carrying a youngster out. Lin Chintao, who had left at the same time. After enduring for a long time, he finally couldn't take it anymore. Lin Chintao exclaimed in the Alliance's WeChat group. What's wrong, Wooly Tao Tao, what happened to you? Sanpang asked. Didn't you win the competition? Lin Chintao replied, I might as well not win, that pervert, Qin Mo is back. My nemesis is back, why did you only tell me now? Lin Chintao replied, didn't you watch the live stream? I didn't. The world's most handsome fatty asked, when did I tell you I watched the live stream? Lin Chintao replied, then you said I won. I was just comforting you. F***ck, it can't be, you really won. What about Supreme Alliance? I still have to fight with my nemesis. It wasn't just the world's most handsome fatty that exploded. The others who had just finished their competition were also confused. Lin Chintao replied, this group is done. This is how you guys respond when I say I won. It's mainly because Little Spade wouldn't let you win. Lin Chintao looked at that sentence and decided to tell the truth. He's not feeling well. Not feeling well. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Lin Chintao tried to recall. There was a red mark on his wrist, but he seemed to be in pain because of his stomach. In reality, it wasn't because of a stomachache. It was because of her period. But the Almighty still knew that once he got on the car, he gave Adjutant Zhang 3 words. Go to the hospital. How could he go to the hospital with this kind of illness? Bo Jiu paused. Brother Mo, it's an old problem. I'll be fine after resting at home and drinking some warm water. What kind of stomach illness can be cured by drinking some warm water? Qin Mo turned his head and looked at the youngster sitting on his left. Bo Jiu pressed against her stomach, her lips pressed into a straight line. I just don't want to go to the hospital. I'm not in a good mood after losing the competition and I know my body well. I just want to sleep now. That was indeed a good reason. At the very least, it was true for youths who were in their rebellious phase. Chapter 690. He probably hadn't expected his young master to be so intimate with someone. Deputy Zhang, who was driving, glanced at the rear mirror subconsciously. The Almighty's scent was still fragrant. It was like the cool and refreshing Kunlun snow mountain with the scent of pine and cypress trees in summer. It was easy to lower one's guard. But she didn't really fall asleep. She couldn't fall asleep with the Almighty's finger in that position. It was a special period and she had to be more vigilant. But the pressure on her lower abdomen was comforting. It eased the pain to a large extent. From this angle, when Chin Mo glanced over, he could see the faint shadow of the youngster's lowered lashes. This position isn't your stomach. What exactly is wrong with you? It was a simple question. But it hit her center of gravity. Bojio replied calmly, my intestines hurt, it happens whenever I catch a cold. Is that so? Chin Mo asked slowly. Bojio wasn't sure if the Almighty was suspicious and was about to move. The Almighty pressed her right hand down. Why are you moving, aren't you sleeping? Bojio's lower abdomen was still sinking, but to avoid suspicion, she said, I'll change my position. Chin Mo glanced at the youngster before replying faintly, the car is big enough, that's fine too. Bojio realized that the Almighty had just finished his sentence. He reached out and her entire back slid towards his shoulder. Then her head rested on his thighs. Just as the Almighty had said, the car was big enough. Hence, it wasn't uncomfortable for her to lie on her side. Even though she couldn't straighten her legs, they could be placed in front of her. But this position made her feel as though the Almighty was treating her like a princess. This time, Princess was in the passenger seat. When he saw his master's actions, he stretched his neck and meowed. Chin Mo's handsome face turned over, his brows furrowing. The moment Princess turned, he fell silent. This cat really knew how to look at people. He had never been so obedient when he was with her. The car was warm. Moreover, it was such a comfortable position. Once she relaxed, the fatigue slowly spread throughout her body. The Almighty didn't mind her. She didn't have to be unreasonable. It wasn't every day that she had the chance to sleep on the Almighty's thighs. The main thing was that if he closed his eyes, at least he wouldn't have to answer the Almighty's questions. Moreover, there were very few times like this. Only she moved. The Almighty would lower his eyes. His features were extremely handsome, and his entire body gave off a sense of abstinence. Bojio watched the face that was inches away from her. She had the urge to take the Almighty home and raise him. The pain in his lower abdomen was slowly alleviating. The speed of the car was also very moderate, neither too fast nor too slow. It had a hypnotic effect. In her half-asleep state, she could still smell the man's unique minty tobacco scent. Instinctively, she shifted her face towards a warmer spot. Chin Mo lowered his head and looked at the youngster's pale and colorless side profile. His gaze moved to the circle of red marks, and even his breath became colder. Deputy Zhang still didn't understand why the young master seemed to have become a different person the moment the young man fell asleep. On the other side, Chin Mo had already called the Chin Group's legal department. Lawyer Song, the lawyer who was still at the police station because of Bojio, paused when he saw the caller ID. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Boss Chin. Chapter 691. Chin Mo's fingers brushed past the red mark, his eyes filled with a violent rage. Where did you go with Feng Yi today? At this point, Lawyer Song wasn't going to hide the truth. Besides, he knew how smart his boss was. The police station. The moment the three words left his mouth, Chin Mo didn't seem surprised. Chin Mo didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he asked the second question, who kidnapped my brother? Lawyer Song paused. It was Miss Wu. According to her, young Master Jiu is related to a crime squad case. The higher-ups ordered her to arrest the suspect, which is why she conducted an interrogation. Interrogation. Qin Mo's voice was icy. Since when did the crime squad conduct an interrogation in a normal police station? This isn't normal. Why would Huang Zhong allow such an arrest? Lawyer Song retreated a little, shaking his head. Director Huang doesn't know. Good, very good. When Qin Mo said those 3 words, his eyes were cold. Go and find out who gave Wu Zhen the convenience to arrest people as she pleased. Lawyer Song hesitated. What about the Wu family? Find them all. Qin Mo lifted his lids. He looked indifferent, but anyone who met his gaze could feel the coldness from the bottom of their hearts. Lawyer Song knew Boss Qin was going to be ruthless. But was the young master of the Bo family that important? So important that even Boss Qin had to take action against the Wu family. It was obvious Qin Mo wasn't just going to take action against the Wu family, he was going to do it personally. Go to the Wu family. Qin Mo hung up the phone. His finger slid across the youngster's wrist as he casually said 3 words. But those who were familiar with him knew. The more nonchalant Qin Mo was, the more dangerous he was. Deputy Zhang couldn't help asking, are we going just like that? Should we bring old master in along? Do you think it's appropriate to bring my grandfather along? Qin Mo countered. Deputy Zhang immediately fell silent. Even though she wasn't in a deep sleep, Bojo couldn't hear clearly what they were saying. She just knew someone was talking. She buried her face once more. The burying attracted all of Qin Mo's attention. Even though he had a thought that shouldn't be happening at this moment. But when he looked at the face nestled between his legs, he really wanted to. He really wanted to do something to the young man in the car. And he really did that. The car entered the tunnel. All the light is covered. In the light, Qin Mo lowered his head, his thin lips kissing the youngster's wrist with the red mark. It was impossible not to be seen. Deputy Zhang's eyes widened in shock. Even with his strong mental fortitude, he had never thought that one day he would see his young master kissing a man. Although it was only his wrist. But the doting look in his eyes was real, and it was frightening. The hand holding the keyboard couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. However, the young master didn't seem to mind at all. The calmness in his eyes made Deputy Zhang understand one thing clearly. In the future, when he took over the driver's job, he would probably see this kind of scene often. But, who could tell him, why did the young master suddenly fall in love with a boy? Satisfied with the closeness of the person in his arms, Qin Mo smiled, his fingers caressing the youngster's hair until they walked out of the tunnel. Chapter 692. The Wu family's butler hadn't expected Qin Mo to come at this time. His face lit up, and the moment the car entered, he called out in a low voice, "Hurry and inform young miss that young Master Qin is here." Yes. The servants trotted away, making the villa seem to be full of life. However, after the car stopped, Qin Mo didn't go out immediately. Instead, he used a backup cushion to replace his left leg, allowing the youngster to sink into it. His fingers caressed the delicate side of her face before he pushed the car door open. Qin Mo, who hadn't changed out of his uniform, looked like an interstellar commander straight out of a comic. Those who hadn't seen him before stopped in their tracks and turned to look at him. Courtesy before force had always been the Qin family style. Hence, there wasn't a hint of anger on Qin Mo's face. That wasn't all. The corner of his mouth still had a faint smile on it. The more old Master Wu looked at him, the more he liked him. He held on to his dragon-headed walking stick, the smile spreading across his face. "Little Mo, why are you here today? I heard from your grandfather that you went overseas to recuperate. Why are you back so soon? I wasn't supposed to be back today, but fortunately, I'm back today. Qin Mo's voice was calm. If not, I wouldn't even know if my people were caught. Old Master Wu stilled. Caught? Who would dare to catch someone from the Qin family? Old Master Wu didn't understand the reason behind it. Wu Zhen, who had just come downstairs, was clear. She hadn't changed out of her uniform. Her fingers tightened when she heard Qin Mo's words. Qin Mo glanced up. Coincidentally, the person in question is here. Old Master Wu was a leader in the business world and could tell that something was wrong. He turned his head and said, "Little Mo, did Zhen do something to upset you? That's why you made this trip. You should know that Zhen has been a strong-willed person since she was young. Now that she's in such a profession, she's a little stubborn. But it can't be helped, that's her profession. She's working so hard to catch up to you." Grandpa. Brother Mo, I don't know who told you, but I know very well that arresting Supreme Alliance members at this time will incur your disgust. But a case is a case, and we can't let any suspect go. This is what you said yourself in the past. I'm just doing my job. The maiden sacrifice case involves too many people, and finding the mastermind behind the scenes is urgent. I've always been focused on the case and not the person. Fu Jiu is a suspect, and I'm just eliminating or confirming this suspicion. Old Master Wu frowned when he heard this. It turned out that the useless young master of the Fu family was the one instigating this. Brad Mo, look at what Zhen has said. There must be some misunderstanding. It's not worth it for an outsider. Chapter 693. Brother Mo. Wu Zhen was on the verge of breaking down when she heard the word court. She had never expected him to do this to her. It was all because of Fu Jiu. Wu Zhen wanted to chase him back. But it was useless. The servant stood there, watching the scene in a daze. No one knew what had happened. She just wanted Wu Zhen not to run so fast. Wu Zhen pointed at the servant and told her to scram. When he went out again, he only had time to see the arc of the Hummer. She couldn't take it. She didn't care about the age of the person beside her and kicked. "You blind thing, don't you know how to stop him?" The auntie, who was usually in charge of cooking, couldn't take Wu Zhen's kick. She clutched her stomach in pain. Wu Zhen's unwillingness and resentment stemmed from within. Old Master Wu's heart ached for his granddaughter. All right, if you can't stop him, you can explain in the future. But Brother Mo doesn't listen to me at all. Wu Zhen wiped her tears. Grandpa, I can't go to court. You have to help me. Old Master Wu patted Wu Zhen's shoulder. Don't worry, Grandpa won't let you suffer. That brat Mo was obviously instigated. But you too, why did you have to mess with Supreme Alliance at this time? Of course, Wu Zhen wouldn't tell Old Master Wu that it was all because of her jealousy. This was because she could no longer stand the fact that all the information that person sent out was about the young man. Even his expression wasn't his usual self. Why? What right did that scheming gay have to get all of this? Why couldn't she? She never watched esports competitions, but she specially watched today's match. When that gay lost, she felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Everything was in line with her expectations. The fans questioned the gay's qualifications to be the vice captain. But there was one thing. Wu Zhen thought she had lost the competition. That gay's position in Brother Mo's heart would be lowered. But she never expected Big Brother Mo to blame it on her. Spade Z was good at pretending to be wronged. Wu Zhen clenched her fists. If a person was so important to Brother Mo, all the more reason for her to think of ways to get rid of this person. Grandpa, we have to talk to Grandpa about this. Wu Zhen lifted her head. The young Master Fu who is contacting Brother Mo isn't a good person. Old Master Wu was naturally on his granddaughter's side. Moreover, the Yin family needed to mediate the matter in court. Don't worry, Grandpa will go find your grandpa in a while. I won't let you suffer. Perhaps people were like this, never considering their own mistakes. Those people always like to hurt in the name of love. Moreover, he would not feel that he was wrong. Unless they get what they want, the whole world is letting them down. It was obvious that Wu Zhen was such a person. She wouldn't think about how she had framed Bojo, she would only use her own thoughts to guess others. However, there was one thing that she did not know. Bojo didn't care about her. Lying in the car, her abdomen was still hurting, so she didn't sleep well. She probably knew that the Almighty had gotten out of the car once and came back, but it wasn't real. However, when she opened her eyes, the car was slowly driving into the best hospital in Jiang City. Chapter 694. This doesn't seem to be my home. Bojo turned, her brows arched. Qin Mo's hand was still on the youngster's furry head, his cold aura unchanged. I'll send you home after the examination. There really isn't anything to examine. Bojo decided to be honest. Fine, I really don't have a stomach problem. I was caught all of a sudden and wasn't wearing enough clothes. Coupled with the fact that I was being interrogated, I'm a little nervous. Qin Mo glanced over, his voice slow. The person interrogating you is better than me. How is that possible? Bojo smiled faintly, her complexion starting to recover. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster. You weren't nervous when I was interrogating you, why are you nervous when someone else is interrogating you? Do you believe that? Bojo, trap. The Almighty was tricking her again. Be obedient. Qin Mo pinched the youngster's neck as though he was pinching a cat. Then he pushed the car door open. Princess didn't want to be involved in human discussions, especially when his master was disciplining someone. Bojo glanced at the nonchalant cat face. She sat in the car without moving. I'm fine. Are you forcing me to carry you down? Qin Mo arched a brow, looking suave. Bojo repeated, I'm really fine. Tell me, what illness could have healed so quickly? Qin Mo glanced at the youngster. Bojo smiled devilishly. Lovesickness. Ever since Brother Mo went to America, I've been having it every day. That's why I recovered the moment I saw you. Cough. Deputy Zhang's face flushed bright red. So, it wasn't just his young master that had a problem, the youngster he was taking care of seemed even more. Qin Mo tilted his head, glancing towards the source of the voice, his voice calm. Deputy Zhang. MMH, I'm here. Qin Mo closed the car door, his gaze deep. Get out first. Yes. Deputy Zhang reacted quickly, alighting the moment he finished speaking. Only the two of them were left in the car. Only then did Qin Mo pull the youngster over. He lifted the youngster's chin with his fingers and smirked. Lovesickness. Bojo knew she had gone too far. Their breaths were too close, so close to each other that she could hear their heartbeats clearly. It wasn't easy to escape from this situation. Hence, she shifted the topic to the Almighty. Before Brother Mo left, you said you had something to tell me. You were so secretive and made me lose my appetite. Every day, I would wake up wondering what exactly you wanted to tell me. Also, Brother Mo, can you stay away from me? Being too handsome will affect my thinking. Qin Mo watched as the youngster spouted nonsense with a serious face. His fingers slid across her fair cheeks, and there was a soul-stirring depth in his eyes that one didn't dare to look at directly. I really want to know what I'm going to tell you. He did want to. After all, It was rare to see the Almighty hesitating about something. But Bojio hadn't expected that person's aura to be so close to her. The clear fragrance of the herbal tobacco hit the back of her ears. Even the sound of the heartbeat was very close. Every beat was agitating her, making her feel an indescribable sense of danger. Just as Bojio was about to move. "Look at me." Chi Nemo lowered his lids, his fingers caressing her lips. Chapter 695. Chi Nemo took a deep look at the youngster. He didn't see any impact on that handsome face. His fingers tightened before relaxing. "Sure, but there's one thing." "What?" Bojio was still thinking about her boyfriend. Chi Mo's lips were right beside her ears. "If I find out you're avoiding me, things won't be as easy to talk about." Bojio. "Almighty, there isn't much to talk about right now. Mainly, Brother Mo, let me digest the sudden confession." Chi Nemo replied faintly, "It wasn't sudden." "MH?" Bojio wiped her lips again. Chi Nemo reached out to stop her, his tone nonchalant. "I've been trying to turn you gay." Turn her gay. Bojio was suddenly reminded of a movie she had watched at the Almighty's house. There had indeed been calcium tablets. Had the Almighty been trying to turn her gay? From the looks of it, it didn't seem to be working. When Chi Nemo said this, he frowned. He was obviously serious. Bojio didn't know how to comment on this. The atmosphere in the car seemed to have frozen. Time seemed to have passed. Chi Nemo dialed Deputy Zhang's number. When Deputy Zhang entered, he sensed something different about the youngster. With a glance, he could see the bite marks on his lower lip. He had been bitten. Deputy Zhang's fingers froze. He must have been thinking too much. That wasn't possible. But the thought was quickly overwhelmed by his young master's next words. "What's wrong with your mouth?" "It's only a kiss." "Deputy Zhang." Bojio didn't reply. Chi Nemo lifted her chin, his fingertips caressing it. "Where's the ointment I gave you?" "Home." Bojio was obedient. Actually, she wasn't obedient, she was a mess. "Boyfriend." Chi Nemo arched a brow. "Apply it when we get back." "Oh. Boyfriend." When Adjutant Zhang heard the conversation in the back seat, he had the urge to jump out of the car. They finally reached the Fu family's mansion. The quiet youngster. Just as they were about to alight, he pressed his young master against the car window. Deputy Zhang was confused. Chi Nemo chuckled. He looked at the person who would never just defend. His gaze deepened. "What do you want to say?" "There is indeed one thing." Bojio lifted her lips, her eyes dark. "Brother Mo, I won't be down there, so it's better for you to consider carefully." She couldn't be the Almighty's boyfriend since they were of different genders. "Oh," Chi Nemo replied, inching closer to the youngster. His left hand held onto her waist, and with a forceful push, he pressed against her inner thighs. Strands of hair fell down, his gaze dark and filled with aggression. "I've thought about it carefully. If you don't behave, I can tie you up. What do you think?" Because of the Almighty's action, Bojio froze. She realized that in certain aspects, she wasn't his match. The blazing temperature could be felt even through the uniform. This was completely different from the man's indifferent and ascetic aura. Even the Almighty looked at her as if he was looking at a sacrificial offering. Chapter 696. Bojio shivered, widening the distance between them. That was when she realized what she had thought would be an aggressive move. But when her reflection was reflected in the rearview mirror, it felt completely different. Especially when the Almighty's hand was placed on her waist. It was as though she was throwing herself into his arms. Chin Mo followed her gaze and caught the scene in the rearview mirror. He smiled. If it's this position, you can be on top in the future since your waist is so soft. Bojo wasn't used to this topic. She inhaled deeply, her gaze clear. Brother Mo, I'm really straight and will always be so. There's nothing permanent in this world. Chin Mo's gaze deepened. You don't have to give me an answer now. Bojo looked at him. But I'm not suitable to be your boyfriend. I said you don't have to give me an answer now. Chin Mo turned, opening the door for the youngster. His handsome face was a little blurry. We'll talk after the revival match. Bojo thought about it, that was the only way. She alighted the car and entered the villa. The black Hummer slowly disappeared from her sight. It was still a mess. The Almighty had tried to turn her gay. Turn her gay. She was a girl. How? Bojo threw herself onto the bed. She was tired and her stomach felt stuffy. But she couldn't sleep. Indeed, she couldn't sleep. Probably because she wasn't used to it. After taking care of Princess for a few days, she suddenly felt empty. But Bojo knew that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was the breath that lingered in her mouth and the lingering heat on her long legs. That was the main reason. Her heartbeat hadn't recovered. It seemed as though she could only close her eyes. The image of that handsome and abstinent face, as well as his aura when he approached her, seemed to be able to seep into her every cell. Bojo sat up, her silver hair falling down, revealing her perfect side profile. The Almighty was gay. But how was she going to tell the Almighty? She wasn't even a boy. In the past, Bojo hadn't thought about it. But now that she thought about it, the Almighty had always been repulsed by girls. He was indeed gay. Besides, the Almighty had a cat. Didn't someone say that before? At least 8 out of 10 men with cats are gay. This situation was really. Bojo reached out to caress her hair. What if she told the Almighty her secret? If she was a girl, the Almighty would probably kill her. Perhaps he could try cross-dressing in front of the Almighty. He had to influence them subtly first. It would be better to drag it out until after the competition. The Almighty liked her in men's clothing. But she knew very well that she was not a boy. The twilight outside the window dyed the earth red bit by bit. Vaguely, the temperature dropped. Deputy Zhang, who was in the car, didn't dare to turn around to look at his young master's expression. But listening to those words just now, young master's confession seemed to have failed. Adjutant Zhang knew very well that ever since he was young, he had always been able to get whatever he wanted easily. This time, Deputy Zhang glanced at the rearview mirror. Only then did she realize that Chin Mo's posture hadn't changed since the beginning. His black fringe fell down, covering his eyes. No one could see his expression. Desolate. Chapter 697. Don't go home, go to Grandpa's. A deep voice came from the back of the car. Assistant Zhang snapped back to his senses and turned the car around. Supreme Alliance's failure would always bring about some side effects. He Honghua had been on a business trip, but after watching the video, her first reaction was to go home. Of course, when they were discussing a collaboration, they looked at the team with more potential. The moment she saw the results, she apologized to He Honghua and chose Fu Zhongyi. At that moment, He Honghua's heart had been gripped by the youngster in the video. Without further discussion, she had brought her team back to Jiang City. Losses were unavoidable. To everyone, the word loss was not something that could be easily forgotten. Even when she closed her eyes, she was still staring at her wrist. She still wasn't strong enough. At the Feng residence, Feng Yi was still on the phone. Fortunately, that person's return had diverted the media's attention to a certain extent. Many of the fans were in low spirits. Even the Supreme Alliance members were the same. Lin Yun's family was very close. It was so close that Lin Feng arched a brow when he saw the figure sitting in front of the computer after his shower. He didn't use the main door. Instead, he opened the window and followed the railing to the balcony before knocking on that person's window. Yunhu placed the documents in his hands down and walked over, pulling the floor-to-ceiling window open. "Aren't you afraid of the cold?" "Why wouldn't I be? I'm freezing to death." Lin Feng supported himself with his arms and jumped up. "Hurry, towel, my hair is still wet." Yunhu watched him. The collar of his t-shirt was pulled wide, the water from his black hair dripping onto it, making him look even fairer. Yunhu's eyes dimmed, tossing a towel over. Unfortunately, a certain someone didn't understand the principle of keeping a distance between men. He wiped his hair roughly and laid on the bed, looking extremely playful. "I'll sleep here tonight." Yunhu crossed his arms. "I'll give you a minute, go back." "Don't be so petty," Lin Feng muttered. "We haven't slept together in a long time." Yunhu arched a brow. "Don't we sleep together in school? One above and one below, it doesn't count." Lin Feng sat up. He still looked handsome. "I'm not dirty. Why are you complaining? Besides, I know you're in a bad mood today. I'm here to comfort you." Yunhu looked at the person who had never cared about anything since he was young but would jump in front of him at the crucial moment. For some reason, his heart softened. In the courtyard, there was no lack of fighting. He still remembered that this guy once saw him surrounded by people. It didn't matter if he was the one who hit the other or the other. He threw his backpack on the ground and pounced on the other party. In the end, his face was covered in bruises. "You're not allowed to bully Hu Zi." Scram. As long as he thought of that person's appearance at that time, Yunhu couldn't help but laugh. "You're really not leaving?" Lin Feng was very determined. "I'm not leaving." "Sure." Yunhu turned his handsome face over. "You should know that I can't control myself when I'm asleep." Lin Feng thought for a moment and asked in a low voice, "You still haven't gotten rid of your habit of having wet dreams the moment you fall asleep?" Yunhu glanced at the man, his gaze deep. "He won't recover. As long as this guy slept beside him, it wouldn't get better." This matter had to start from when they were 16 years old. That day, Yunhu was obviously drunk and couldn't control himself when he attacked a certain someone. Yunhu could still remember the expression on that person's face at that time. It was just a light kiss and his entire body had stiffened like a dumpling. He had looked at him as though he was looking at bacteria. That gaze was still fresh in his memory. He was afraid of the estrangement when he woke up the next day. The moment he opened his eyes, Yunhu asked calmly, "Did I do anything yesterday?" That person glared. "You don't remember?" "I remember, I had a dream." The calmer Yunhu was, the tighter his grip became. He watched as that person heaved a sigh of relief. "You scared me to death." "It's fine, you just had a wet dream. I'll just treat it as a form of friendship. My first kiss is gone, f*ck, however, everything was an excuse. There wasn't any dream. He was just worried that he would be pushed away." Ever since that day, Yunhu understood where his tolerance was. Hence, when a certain someone hugged his pajamas and climbed over the wall to sleep with him, he immediately chased that fellow back home. "Why aren't we sleeping together?" That fellow had been asking him this question for an entire week. But very quickly, they were living in the same dormitory with different beds. I asked my mom to pull some strings. Why did you have to do so well in your exams? I crammed for a month before I managed to catch up. Now that we're in the same dormitory, let's celebrate. Shall we go overnight? That day, a certain someone was in the internet cafe, leaning on his shoulder and sleeping soundly. At that time, they had opened the first version of Hero. Hence, he didn't want to lose. I'll say this first, you can have wet dreams but don't touch me. Lin Feng tilted his head. I'm ticklish. Yunhu reached out to extinguish the light. This isn't easy to control. F***ck, think about it, I'm a man sleeping beside you, my thoughts would definitely be smaller. Lin Feng turned over. In an instant. The two handsome faces were extremely close to each other. Yunhu's eyes were on him. Lin Feng felt inexplicably uncomfortable. I have experience in this area, it'll be fine if you don't always think about girls. You have experience. What experience? Yunhu's voice suddenly turned cold. Who did you dream about? Lin Feng shook his head. Not yet, I haven't found a girlfriend. Why was he so fierce? Yunhu shut his eyes, his nose straight. Sleep, there shouldn't be any dreams today. Are you not in the mood after losing the competition? Lin Feng heaved a long sigh. Me too. If Little Spade wasn't around, Supreme Alliance would have lost even more miserably. He seems to be in a lot of pain. Why was he sent to the police station? If the media finds out, it would be another storm. Yunhu opened his eyes, dark and bright. With Captain around, this can be resolved. Don't forget, we still have the revival match. Of course I didn't forget. Lin Feng laughed. We will definitely revive successfully and continue to conquer the National League. MMH, Yunhu replied, closing his eyes again. Lin Feng glanced over, hugging his pajamas, no different from when he was young. The corners of his mouth were still curled up, and he didn't realize that the person next to him would kiss his handsome face after he fell asleep. How much gentleness was there in this world? How much was there to kick him when he was down? Ever since Shui Yaoyao entered the Jiang family, she hadn't heard the laughter in her ears. She and the Jiang family had always been incompatible. The Jiang family was in the entertainment industry and had more banquets than other wealthy families. Shui Yaoyao didn't know how her mother adapted. Just by sitting there. Shui Yaoyao felt a little tired. It was probably because she had lost the competition. That was why she was like this. Now, the moment she closed her eyes. The image of the youngster's left hand with a bloody wound appeared in her mind, 1-2. Those accusations. That person shouldn't have to bear it. If only she had been revived a little earlier. If she had revived earlier, the outcome would have been different. She knew that when she entered this industry, she was prepared to be loved and scolded. But she didn't understand. What was wrong with the youngster who had worked so hard and had never lost? Shui Yaoyao lowered her eyes and put something in her mouth, her mind clearly not on this. But there were also people who Han Susu knew. They chuckled softly. It's just a competition, it's fine if you lost. Why are you so pathetic? Cinderella has woken up from her dream, her only way out is gone, how can she not be pathetic? You don't know, the loser young Master Fu who argued with us because of this person was splashed with coke by his fans. He is so unpopular, how can he be the vice captain? It doesn't make sense for such a person to be the vice captain. Stop talking, be careful, or Yao Yao will flip out. The few of them laughed as they talked. They were like this because they knew that the fatty wouldn't do anything in such an occasion. However, it was obvious that they were wrong this time. Under everyone's gaze. Shui Yaoyao placed her tray down, walking towards the person who was closest to Han Susu. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. People like you don't understand how good that person is. Since you don't understand games, please shut up. The person paused, seemingly angered by Shui Yaoyao's actions. He opened his mouth. What is this? She really flipped out. I think a young miss like you should learn from a young age, don't gossip about others behind their backs. Supreme Alliance's win or loss has nothing to do with you, my Zhou situation has nothing to do with you. When Shui Yaoyao said this, she obviously didn't care about the things she shouldn't say or the things that would put her mother in a difficult position. Because she couldn't protect that person in the competition, she had seen with her own eyes that the youngster had shouldered everything with a pale face. Outside the competition, she didn't want to hear anyone slandering the youngster. Jiang Zhua had been standing at the side, his hand still holding a glass of wine. When he heard Shui Yaoyao's words, he paused, his gaze empty. Mother Shui hurried over, pulling Shui Yaoyao to the side. I want to move out. Shui Yaoyao looked at Mama Shui. Mom, this place isn't suitable for me. I know that Uncle Jiang brought me here because he wants our family to be harmonious. If reporters find out that I'm living outside, they'll definitely write some nasty things. This time, I won't tell anyone. Mother Shui paused, she was experienced and had suffered. Yaoyao, this is the first time I'm hearing you say no, isn't it important? The person you defended just now. Shui Yaoyao wanted to tell Mother Shui that he was the person who had allowed her to return to school, but she had promised the youngster not to say anything. Mother Shui laughed. Someone you like. Shui Yaoyao blushed, this was a huge misunderstanding. She wanted to explain. Mother Shui fished out a stack of money, stuffing it into Shui Yaoyao's hands. You can move out, take this money. Mom, I. Before Shui Yaoyao could finish her sentence, Mother Shui cut her off. Mother Shui cut her off. It's not the Jiang family's money, it's the money from the previous stall. You've grown up, don't think that I don't know about you running every day to lose weight. I'm living quite well with the Jiang family now, and your Uncle Jiang treats me very well. You don't have to worry about me here, just buy whatever you need to buy. I've watched the video of your competition, my daughter looks really beautiful in the uniform. Mom. Shui Yaoyao couldn't help but reach out, hugging the warm person. Mother Shui patted her back. Do whatever you want while you're still young. I don't know anything, I used to think that gaming was useless, but after you lost yesterday, I realized that it wasn't just a game. It doesn't matter if you don't win the national championship, as long as you like it. Shui Yaoyao mumbled, afraid that she would cry. After keeping the money, she didn't cry, but her eyes were bright and clear. Even her back view when she left was tall and straight. Everyone was growing up. Growing up through failure. Only then would they become more indestructible. Outside the Jiang family's villa. Shui Yaoyao didn't expect to bump into Jiang Zhua, her brother in name, the moment she stepped out. She paused for a moment, wanting to walk around him. But she didn't expect to be grabbed by the wrist. He pulled her back harshly. You want to move out so badly. Jiang Zhua's voice was low, and it sounded heavy when one listened carefully. Shui Yaoyao glanced over. You don't want to see me either, just move out. Is it because I don't want to see you, or because of Fuzhou? Jiang Zhua stared at her and suddenly laughed. He let go of her hand, stuffing one hand into his pocket, and said with the smell of alcohol, how much do you know about that person? You've become so bold, that person will never like you. Stop dreaming, listen to your brother, wash up and go to bed, understand? Shui Yaoyao smiled too. Everyone is telling me to stop dreaming. You're so fat, so you should be like this. I used to think so too in the past, but things changed. I met that person, so why can't I dream too? Because I'm poor, because I'm fat. Maybe I won't be like those girls you know. When they like you, they spend so much money on everyone and let everyone confess to you. I can't do that, because I'm not dreaming. I'm very sure that one day I'll become the person I want to be. When I meet the person I like again, I'll still do it the same way as before. I'll accompany and familiarize myself with him. Confessing is a person's business. I won't let anyone else do it for me. If he doesn't accept it, then forget it. I can't just wash and sleep. Jiang's hand in his pocket shook. He looked at the back of the figure that he thought would never leave before him. He clenched his fists tightly, so tightly that even his eyes were filled with coldness. Unknowingly, some things had gotten out of his control. Was this what she meant by like? Didn't she like him? Bang! Jiang's raised his hand and punched the wall at the side. When the chauffeur rushed over, he saw this scene and called out hesitantly. Young master. Jiang's tugged the tie on his suit and used it to wipe the blood on the back of his hand. He lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "Send Miss out and see where she stays." Yes. The chauffeur didn't dare to hesitate. He started the car and drove down the slope. When he saw Shui Yaoyao, he immediately stopped the car. "Miss, let me send you out, it's not safe at night." Shui Yaoyao didn't reject him. It wasn't easy to get a cab here, with the chauffeur sending her, it wouldn't be too cold. Just as she boarded the car, her phone rang. It was a voice message from Feng Shang, and he stuttered slightly. "Yao sister Yao Yao, where are you?" I am with a uncle. We met for the first time at the internet cafe. Here, are you busy?" "No, come over if you're not busy. A uncle said there's a training session for you and me." Shui Yaoyao's eyes lit up, and she said, "I'll go over now." Come. Feng Shang pressed the phone. Train well, in the future, there won't be a need to be like today." Shui Yaoyao understood Feng Shang's feelings. Especially when the car passed by the huge square. There was an emotion that would become more obvious. At that time, she had never thought that she would become a professional player. But here, rose petals fell, the youngster held the uniform in her hands, smiling faintly as she handed their future to them. This time, it was time for them to work hard. The internet cafe was still bustling with business. Shui Yaoyao pushed the door open and walked in. Uncle Ian had a cigarette in his mouth, still looking decadent and handsome. "Hey, you're here, let's begin." Everything was the same as the first time they met. Everyone didn't change. Instead, they were even more certain of their future direction. The night deepened a few degrees. The villa in the south of the city. The lights were brightly lit. Old Master was undoubtedly happy. After all, he only had one grandson. He got someone to prepare a table full of dishes. When Qin Mo ate, he didn't act any different from usual. After the meal, the grandfather and grandson played chess. When the chess piece landed, Qin Mo opened his mouth. "Grandfather, I'm going to make a move on the Wu family." Old Master N's fingers paused. "Make a move on the Wu family?" "Yes." Qin Mo lifted his lids. He had always been respectful to the elderly. "I came to inform grandfather in advance. If there are no accidents, they will come to grandfather's place tomorrow. I don't want grandfather to hear any false rumors. I can tell grandfather first that no one is trying to sow discord. Wu Zhen's actions are enough for me to send her to court. My attitude won't change. I hope grandfather won't stop me when the time comes." Old Master looked at his grandson and let out a long sigh. "Wu Zhen likes you too much." I have never given her any response. Even in front of his grandfather, Chin Mo didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. There is no love in this world that can be achieved by hurting the most important person to me. What I am doing now is a legitimate retaliation. Old Master knew he couldn't persuade him, so he didn't say anything else. After the age of 6, his grandson didn't follow him anymore. He knew some things had to be left to the younger generation to handle. Even if he personally liked Wu Zhen, he couldn't. But such a lifelong matter couldn't be forced. On the Wu family's side, he would think of another way. Old Master watched his grandson who was playing chess with him. This child, other than being angered in America when you were young, you don't have any expressions at all when you grew up. Chin Mo glanced up. When I was young. When you were 5 or 6, have you forgotten? Grandpa seemed to have thought of something funny. He stroked his beard and laughed. At that time, you were often pressed under the girl in the next room. You couldn't even move. You even said that when you became a police officer, the first person you would arrest would be her. Chin Mo thought for a long time, but it was still a blur. Old Master shook his head. It seems like you really forgot. When she left, you were sad for a long time. Sad. Him. Chin Mo didn't comment. Grandpa smiled and said, I just don't know where my old friend moved to. But the Bo family is so strange. They never stay in one place for a long time. Bo. Chin Mo paused because of the family name. Old Master arched a brow. Why? Did you remember something? No. Chin Mo just remembered Zi's surname, which was Bo. If they didn't talk about the Wu family, there would be fewer conflicts. After leaving the villa, Chin Mo glanced at his phone. It was empty, there was nothing on it. The profile picture on his WeChat was also very quiet. Perhaps he should give the youngster some time. Because once he opened his mouth, if it was a rejection, he wasn't sure what he would do. Chin Mo thought about what the youngster had said today. Brother Mo, I'm straight, and I will be in the future. Wasn't he straight as well? But he would be crazy to fall in love with such a person. The next day, the sun shone down on her body, warming her. Bo Jiu didn't go anywhere. Firstly, her relative hadn't left. Secondly, there wouldn't be any competitions for the next 7 days. She could rest and do some cover-up work. She knew that Wu Zhen hadn't found anything. If there was any concrete information, the crime squad wouldn't have done it. He was trying to find a reason to lock her up in there. If there was a second time, it would be troublesome. Hence, she gave her partner a call. Be my defense lawyer in the future and I'll give you a piece of information regarding your ex-wife. Speak. Lawyer Bai wasn't a long-winded person, which was one of the reasons Bo Jiu admired him. The information shows that you have a 5-year-old child. Thank you for informing me so early. That 5-year-old child is in my law firm now. He asked me to stay away from his mother. The man tugged his tie, narrowing his eyes at the child in front of him. Bo Jiu smiled. Congratulations, we'll talk another day. If she didn't hang up now, how long would she be waiting for? After she was done with all this, when she was free, that handsome and abstinent face appeared in her mind again. She shook her head, glancing at the mirror. The wound on her lips hadn't healed. Even though it was thin, she could feel it with a single lick. She wiped it with the back of her hand instinctively. The youth's entire body also leaned backwards. Chapter 698. Afternoon. The In family villa. It was just as Chin Mo had said. Old Master Wu appeared on time. But Old Master Wu was smart. It should be said that people of their age understood that before they did anything, they had to think it over. He didn't bring Wu Zhen. Instead, he brought a box of good tea, saying that he wanted to chat with an old friend. Old Master Wu talked about many things. Most of them were experiences they had gone through when they were young. Old Master listened, nodding from time to time, a smile on his lips. When the topic was about the same, Old Master Wu then said, once Zhen falls in love with someone, he will act rashly, to the point where he doesn't even have a chance to explain himself. I've spoiled him, but you know Zhen character. Nothing had ever happened to these two juniors, but this time, Zhen had arrested one of his team members. That team member was probably a scheming person, and things had turned out this way. Olden, we've known each other for so many years, it's not worth it for a small team member. You've seen how Zhen treats Qin Mo, but there are some things that can't be helped. She chose to be a police officer because she wanted to be closer to Qin Mo, but who knew that things would turn out this way? Zhen doesn't have any ill intentions towards that member, she just brought him to ask some questions. If this makes Qin Mo unhappy, Zhen can apologize. Why do you have to take this to court? It hurts their relationship. After Old Master heard the entire story, he finally said, Old Wu, let the younger generation handle their own matters. My grandson has always been indifferent since he was young, and I can't control his actions. Old friend, let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. If Zhen really did something wrong, please stop. Old Master wasn't muddle-headed, he had his own connections and judgment. Last night, after his grandson came, he contacted some of his old friends in Jiang City. Although he was a businessman, he wasn't involved in such matters. But he knew that the crime squad's most important case couldn't be handed over to a police station. Besides, after asking around, it was clear that the police station's director had received benefits from the Wu family. Therefore, it was clear at a glance what was going on. It wasn't without reason that his grandson would come at night. After all, his grandson had always been protective of the esports team. He definitely couldn't tolerate someone finding trouble with his team members. They even locked him up. Grandpa had specially watched the match this morning. He was injured, but he was still able to hold on until that point. He probably saw the shadow of his grandson in the young man. Therefore, Grandpa did not intend to intervene in this matter. As an old friend, I just wanted to give you a reminder. Old Master Wu did not expect to hear such an answer. It was impossible not to be surprised. However, he quickly calmed down and didn't reveal anything. His expression was different when he went out of Anne's villa. Wu Zhen was still waiting in the car. When she saw Old Master Wu, she sat up straight. Grandpa, how is it? What did Grandpa say? Old Master Wu glanced at his granddaughter, lowering his voice. The problem lies with Qin Mo, Olden can't make the decision. But Zhen, listen to me, you have to stop. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.